Well, Erin's been doing a wonderful job. We've been doing, through COVID, we've been doing what we call virtual town hall meetings. And Erin has really, I would be lost without her, but we're making a difference in the autistic world, I can tell you that.
Right.
But would you like, before Margaret introduces you, let me just tell you about I'm really excited. We have some really good attendees tonight. So we have a brand new faculty member, Hope Balo. We have some wonderful nursing faculty members on board, Joanne and Anne. And then we have Christina, Michael Kelly, Patty Wisniewski from OT. But I'm going to turn it over to Margaret to introduce you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. And I would like to introduce Dr. Beth Elias, who has been on the health informatics faculty since the program started, and she teaches the introductory health informatics course and the capstone course. And so Beth has a degree in computer science from Cornell, is that right? Yeah. And then
University of New York. Mm-hmm.
And then her master's is in management information sciences, and she has a PhD in instructional technology. And she has experience in health informatics, working for the state, for private industry, and an academic medical center. Plus, she has taught informatics face-to-face and online and in multiple places for a number of years, and she has been a godsend to our curriculum. And most recently this spring, she received the part-time faculty teaching award for our university. So Beth, I don't want to take up any more time because we're all looking forward to your presentation.
Well, thank you. And so I'm apologizing for my dark light here. I just had a light bulb blow out in my overhead light, and I didn't have time to replace it. So you'll see in one of my slides about video tips, one of them is lighting. So right now you're seeing an example of not really optimal lighting. So I have my desk lamp here, and you can see that reflected in my glasses, which is, not the best thing. And also it's just dark in here, and I have to tilt my screen up to see my ego wall, as we call it, with my diplomas to make it look more professional. So we'll talk about a little tips for how to make your videos look a little more professional later on. But let me do a share screen right now. And so when I do share screen, you usually get the option of sharing your whole desktop or just sharing a particular application. And I share the particular application because you don't want your email announcements, if you have your email open, coming across so your students can see that, right? Or any other calendar notifications that you have about your dental appointment or mammogram or anything like that. So I always prefer to share just the application, which in this case is going to be PowerPoint. So let me do that right now. And I'm going to, if you don't mind, I prefer to stop my video at this point because I get distracted by that little moving image up on the top part of my screen, because I'm kind of like a minor bird. I'm very easily distracted visually. So I'm going to turn that off, and it also saves me, and if you're on restricted bandwidth for your internet at home, it saves you a lot of your bandwidth when you do that. So, you can put up a headshot so people can see you, or sometimes I put up a picture of my cat because I'm a cat person. So what we're going to talk about this evening is how do we engage students in the online world? And the reason that that's the topic is because people that are used to teaching face-to-face are used to, like I have been, looking at students, seeing how they're reacting to what you're saying. Am I losing them? Are they looking down at their desk? Are they playing with their phones? Are they paying attention? Are they raising their hands? So in the online world, it's a little bit different because you don't have that opportunity to see and evaluate in the moment when you're face-to-face. So hopefully this presentation will help you understand some of the tools and things that you can use when you're moving from doing a face-to-face teaching class to a class that's in the online world. So as Margaret said, a little bit about me, which is always helpful. So I have my BS in computer science. I didn't realize in the 80s that girls weren't supposed to do that sort of thing. Some of my faculty made that very clear later on. but I persisted because I'm probably on the autism spectrum. If you were going to test me, of course, they didn't test girls back then because it was thought to be something that applied only to men. So after being a computer systems engineer and system administrator of business class servers in the working world, in healthcare, in clinical trials, for a long time, I went back and got my master's degree in the management of information technology because I kind of wanted to learn project management, and that was the class that kind of hooked me into it. By the time I left that one faculty member's office to sign up to take his course, I had the application for the whole program. So I thought, okay, let's do that. So then I figured I had finished, living in pain for a period of time. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do a PhD, I may as well do it now before I get used to having a life again. So I went to an ed school at UVA, McIntyre School of Commerce for my master's, Curry School of Education for my PhD, where I focused on instructional technology. But I did my dissertation on user acceptance of healthcare information systems, because it's all about how do people learn when they're faced with a totally new tool in their environment, which is totally what many faculty members are faced with right now with moving to teaching online. So I've been teaching in online nursing, MSN programs in nursing informatics and DNP programs, teaching them about health informatics. And then of course in the University of Scranton program in health informatics since about 2009. So our learning objectives for this class, and I will not read them to you because as one of my colleagues said, there's a special place in hell for people that read to literate people. So we're just going to work on helping people understand ways they can adapt to this new environment and some strategies to help you with that, bring that face-to-face presence into the online space. And then some tools that you can use to aid communication and develop this community of inquiry and relationships with your students. So we're going to do it in 3 acts today. So when I'm working on things like that, I kind of think about these things like a play. And so we're going to do act 1, which is this hopefully very short PowerPoint presentation. And then we're going to look at 2 courses, one in D2Learn, which I understand many people are dealing with. And then we're going to do some brainstorming and questions and answers. And so I'm kind of as an IT person, I'm a short attention span. So if you interrupt and ask questions, I'm going to really love that. It's going to help bring me back to the content and what we're talking about. So I would say, and let me show you this. How many people know how to use the, let me bring up the participant screen so I can see. So I actually have to bring up, so if I want to see people raising their hands, I actually have to bring up a separate screen here, which we'll talk about a little bit later with Zoom, about how to see when students are raising their hands. So let me open that up right now. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share my whole screen right now so I can show you that. I don't know how many people are used to Zoom. So share screen. I'm going to share my desktop. We can see Dr. Zalon's lovely picture there. So right now we have our toolbar. Once you start sharing your screen, you get this little toolbar up here at the top right. And so if I want to see what people are doing as far as texting and raising their hands, I have to open up this participants window. So then down here, I can see everybody's name. And then you can say, if you're a participant, you can click on this. If you're answering a question, just say yes. Click on that, it will show yes, right? Or if I ask you a question, your response is no, you can click on no. If I'm going too fast, because I'm from the Northeast, I talk really fast, you can tell me to slow down. Or if I'm talking too slow, you can tell me to speed up. And then there are more tools like a thumbs up if it's good content, thumbs down, clap your hands, I'm having a cup of coffee, I need a break. And then also raise your hands. So this is a good way to orient your students, which we'll talk about later, to how Zoom works so that they can participate in a more orderly fashion. So actually, let me stop sharing that. Actually, yeah, I'm going to stop sharing that and just go back to sharing my application, which is Microsoft at this point. But then I have to open up the participant screen again so I can see what people are doing. So it's a little bit clunky at this point with Zoom to be able to share just an application and see what people are doing. But I'd be happy to, for anybody that's not familiar with Zoom, have a one-on-one with you to kind of walk you through how it works and how to optimize your use of it with your students. So let me go to our next slide. And so in thinking about this, this presentation, you know, I reached back into my ed school classes to think about how do people learn? And I'm thinking in a dual way here about how students learn from us, regardless of whether it's face-to-face or online, and then how we learn as faculty members to teach in a new format. So I touched on constructivism, which I have a reference down there to Piaget, who was a Swiss psychologist in the late 1900s, early 20th century, working on cognitive studies. And so prior to Piaget, all instruction was based on changes in observable behavior, because it was thought that we can't really understand how people think about things and what happens inside their minds about learning. But Piaget kind of proved that that was not really true, but that we can actually think about the cognitive processes that students have to bring in new information, new data, new information, and construct knowledge from that. So what we understand from constructivism is that learners have a base of knowledge already that we can use to our benefit as faculty members and as learners ourselves. So they have experiential understanding, and that they can, one of the main ways that they successfully assimilate new information is by connecting it to that existing base of knowledge that they have. And this is particularly true for adult learners that are coming back for graduate studies. So they have a framework that's pretty mature based on their social and personal and professional and educational interactions, that if we think about that for a while, we can actually use that to our benefit. So the construction of new knowledge is based on input, right? Coming into cognitive processes that are scaffolded by this existing framework to hopefully result in changes in observable behavior. So this is what we want. So education is at its core a transformational experience. And so if we think about that and really take that on board, not only for our students, but for ourselves, we know that we have to work to be aware, right? What is our framework? What is our scaffold that we need to plug into to make this successful move for ourselves and our students to online learning? And so by understanding that, it will support us in developing new ways of doing that, based on this solid grounding that we already have. So I would say in moving to online learning, you don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So you already know how to be a good teacher. You already know how to work with students. You already know what you need to do. So that's your framework that we can tap into. And so what we're going to think about then is, what is our instructional message in dealing with our students? So for my introductory course, it's Introduction to Health Informatics. So my instructional message is, what is health informatics and what does it mean to you as a professional and personally as a patient or family member of a patient? So we can think about that message, and it's independent of how we deliver that message. So if we take some time to think about that message, then we can look at what tools we have to put that message together and communicate it to the students. So, if we take some time to step back and think about that core message, then look at what tools we have available to us, we'll be much more successful in delivering that message regardless of the platform. So then, my point at this point is let's get back to basics, right? So think about our instructional message. What is the purpose of your course? And what change do you want to bring to your students? What do you want them, from when they came in to when they leave your class, what do you want them to have on board when they're done? And so what inputs do you have to support that? What content, what coursework do we need to give them as far as materials and activities go? What can you build into the course design that will support their cognitive processes, which is the scaffolding to help them get that new knowledge in and place it in their framework and change their framework? So then, of course, it's how do we measure the observable change in behavior, which is our evaluation and assessment. So once we think about those things, independent of the delivery method, then we can think about what tools we have within the learning management system that we can use. And so I have a link down there at the bottom of this slide that is a really good intro into instructional message design for the online learning environment from the Old Dominion University here in Virginia. And I thought it was just a really nice, succinct introduction to how do we think about that as something that is separate from the way that we're delivering it. And so then what the heck is an online learning management system? And so, you know, I've talked to faculty members, oh, I know how to use Canvas, or I know how to use D2Learn, or I know how to use Blackboard, but I don't know these other systems, as if somehow learning one means you don't know anything about the others. But the thing is, they all have to do the same things. They just may do them in slightly different ways. So if you have experience with an online learning management system, you're already more than halfway there to getting your course, face-to-face course, set up within D2Learn or Engage or whatever platform you're using. And so, excuse me, so to my mind, it breaks out into 4 different areas. And the first is you got to be able to create content. You have to be able to do some text introductions to assignments. You have to be able to do some editing of that text to change assignment dates or change assignments or to update things. You have to be able to upload and develop some video for introductions to modules and assignments. You may want to do some multimedia if you're much more visual than I am. You probably want to include some photos. You're going to be uploading some files like assignment guidelines or PDFs of things you want students to read. You may want to include some links to websites like your professional organization that has some material on the particular topic that you're talking to. So you're going to be creating that content within the online learning management system. And then you're also going to need some communication tools. So you're going to have some individual messaging to students within the online learning system that's separate from your university email. And so you can either email or message students individually or as a group within the online system. And the only thing I'll say about that, as opposed to using the university email, is that if there's ever an issue with students or a group, if you do it within the online learning management system, it's all there in one place for people to review and look at if it's necessary. So I encourage that. I know it's another place you have to check messages, and that's annoying, but if it's within the context of the course, within the system, then it's easier for you as a faculty member and other people to come in and look at that and say, yes, this is all the communication. We don't have this other email that may have been deleted in your university email to look at. You also have announcements, which I tend to use pretty heavily, and I'll show you that here when we start looking at the actual course examples that we're talking about. And then you have a virtual office or some kind of video meeting area where you can have cameras on like we do now to meet with students. I'll often meet with students in the virtual office to look at assignments that they're developing. I'll have them share screen and put up a draft and we'll walk through it together. That works much better than having them email it to me and then have to give them email comments back, which is just really inefficient and painful. So there's a video meeting area, and then there are text rooms, chat rooms, discussion forums where you're just using text. And then there's also the grading within an online learning management system. And so if you're not used to teaching online in a learning management system, I would say get with the IT folks early about having them look at your gradebook with you and make sure that you've got it set up to do your final grading successfully. Because when I first started teaching online, I did not do that. And I got caught out several times because I had things set up in a way that was not going to contribute to me being able to figure out their final grades easily. And I had actually set up some assignments so that they didn't feed into the gradebook appropriately. So this is a critical thing. I would suggest that if you are new to online learning management systems, get somebody from the support group to get with you and look at your gradebook and make sure that you've got things set up so that you can be successful getting your final grading done. And so as far as grading, there are different tools that you'll need to adapt to for doing the grading. And D2Learn is actually pretty good. And then some systems also give you the ability to develop rubrics that will assist you in doing the grading when the time comes. So if you have that option with D2Learn, it's been a while since I worked with it. I'm not 100% sure about that. Take advantage of, if they give you an online tool to develop rubrics, take advantage of it because it will speed up your grading and make it much more consistent student to student. Then you also have the ability to track students and their activity within the online learning management system in your course in particular. So you will have the ability to look at when they've logged in, how long were they on for, and some systems will let you see what items they've clicked on at least. It doesn't really give you a lot of information about how long they spent clicking on that, but you can actually go back, as I've done several times with students that were kind of treating it like it was a correspondence course, to see how often are they logging in, how long are they staying when they log in, and what are they looking at when they log in. So this is also very helpful if you have a student that will come to you and say, well, you know, I looked at that the other day and I didn't understand what was said. And you can go into the tracking history and say, well, you know, it's not showing me that you actually looked at that or that you were even logged on that day. So it can be very helpful for accountability with students. So it's a good thing to figure out how to do. So then, you know, outside of the online learning management system, you're probably going to need to get some extra tools on board. Excuse me. I know video is very helpful with online courses because it helps with your faculty presence since you're not face-to-face. So you're going to want to be able to create videos. And, you know, I like to be able to edit them as well. The reason for that is because when I'm explaining an assignment or when I'm doing an introduction to a particular module, I don't want to have to do it perfectly right from beginning to end. I want to be able to do a piece of it, check that, then do another piece of it, check that. So if I can edit the video together in little pieces like that, it makes it much easier for me. So if you're Mac-based, you can just use iMovie, which comes with your operating system. I use that a lot. And now I use a tool called Camtasia, which gives me a little bit more editing tools. And if people want to learn how to work with either of these tools, I'd be happy to schedule a one-on-one with you to take you through iMovie or Camtasia and how you can do basic video editing so that it makes it a little less stressful for you when you're doing your videos and a little more meaningful for students, because it lets you incorporate some other things like photos and a little audio. So it's actually worth taking a little time to do that. So I'd be more than happy to help anybody that would like that. Just send me an email and let me know. So, you know, the advantage to that is you get the camera on you, or you can have the mic on you, or you can do what's called screencasting, which is what we're doing right now. So you can actually bring up your presentation and, you know, introduce it like we did initially, camera on me, here's me, I'm talking to you, and then move to screencasting and then end up with camera on you, you know, with your encouraging message to student about how to work with the assignment. And, you know, I would encourage you too to think about things like recording from your phone. If you're someplace where there's a meaningful moment to your content. And so the first time I did this, I actually was in my physician's office for my annual appointment, my physical exam. And I'm in there in the exam room and I'm in my gown, you know, like the gown. And my physician comes in and says, well, you know, I was trying to log into the main healthcare system in the area to see what your last test results were, but I got a new laptop for the holidays and it's not letting me into the provider portal. Could you come in my office and help me? So I'm there, wrap my gown around me as best I can, and I'm in his office, like getting his laptop set up so that he can access my records within the provider portal so he can understand like what he needs to do with me right now. So when I got out to my car, I was just like, so, you know, I just recorded myself on my phone saying, okay, this is what just happened to me. This is an example of providers not being prepared for health IT. So, you know, it was a teachable moment and I captured it on my phone and then just uploaded that video to the course. Of course, you can also do just photos or scanned images, PDFs. You can do a screen grab, iPhoto. So learning how to use these tools in a very simple way will help you a lot. And also, you don't have to do video. You can just do audio. You know, and the Mac comes with GarageBand, which is just an audio recording tool. And I'll just say that if you want to use that and use Camtasia or iMovie, let me show you how to make the audio mono rather than stereo, because it will make the file a lot smaller and a lot easier for upload. So then you can also put in URLs for things like your professional organization that may have webinars, podcasts, other educational content. So for me, it's the Health Information Management Systems Society, and they have their own TV channel that I tap into quite often to have some like more interactive kind of, not interactive, that's the wrong word, more interesting content for students rather than just seeing my face up there talking about things. So then let's think about, like, if you have a face-to-face course and you're thinking about, I have to move it online, somebody opened this huge fire hose on me, I'm struggling with learning the tools myself, helping my students learn their tools and how to move over the content. You know, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by that. So I would suggest thinking about it in 3 phases. The first 3 phases, you know, and just take a minute to think about, what do you usually do with your class? And so make a list of that and then divide that list into, does this part transfer without having to adapt anything? That would be readings, written assignments. You have those guidelines already. You can upload those into the course. You don't really need to change those very much, right? So what's the easy win that I can get done quickly here that I don't need to do much with? So then there's another category of, well, it needs some change to be adapted, but it can actually be done without too much trouble. And that would be like discussions, teamwork, quizzes and exams. How does it need to be adapted? And what new tools do we have that we can actually bring forward to do that? So for quizzes and exams with an online learning management system, it has all these fancy things that you can do to build a quiz and an exam. It's really, you can vary the order of the questions, you can vary the order of the answers within the questions, you can do item analysis, all these things. Right now, if you're just trying to struggle to adapt a course to online, I would say just scan in the exam as a piece of paper or as a Word document, put it up there, the students can download it, they can fill it out, then they can scan it back up and put it in the Dropbox. So it's a way to make that work a little easier for you, that will give you time later on to learn how to use the learning management system tools to actually do quizzes and exams. So I'd say make that as easy as it can be for you initially, and then you can always go back later and figure out what new tools you have to use for that. So, and you know, using new tools for collaboration is always going to be a little more of a challenge, but you know, you're used to doing email. All the students all do texting now. They all do FaceTime now. So these aren't really new tools. You're just using them in a new setting. So then we have to think about what things don't really transfer, what are hard to be adapted, and what's hard to define. And so that really comes down to things like faculty and student presence. How can we be present as faculty members when we're not face-to-face? And how can students be present when we're not looking them in the eye and seeing whether things are catching or not? And so there are going to be different tools for communication, different tools for relationship building, different tools to help you show your enthusiasm for your field of study, and different tools to help motivate the students. And I would say for the last 4, communication to motivation, that's really important for us too, as faculty members, because we get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing that moment when a student kind of finally gets it, right? And so how do we do that in an online setting when we're not looking them in the eye, right? And we don't see that light bulb go off over their head. So we need that motivation too from student presence in the course. So I think at this point, you know, I've seen a lot of people move to online from face-to-face. And one example is my husband's brother, who's taught computer science down at University of Virginia for a number of years now. He's a very physically dynamic person. And when I first talked to him about, oh, you know, you might want to think about doing some online courses. Oh no, I can't do that. I need to be in front of my students. They need to see me and I need to see them. So early this spring, when things went totally online, he came to me in a total panic about, he didn't know how to be a teacher anymore. So I think the message I got from that and from other colleagues is that if you're a good teacher face-to-face, you're going to be a good teacher online. You know, so what students feel from you is that you support them, that you care about their experience, and that you want them to succeed. So really that's what matters in the end, is that they feel you there to help and guide them and mentor them through the course. And if you're that way as a teacher face-to-face, you're going to be that way as a teacher online. So hopefully that will give you some confidence in that, you know, your skill as a teacher doesn't depend on the platform that you're using. It's really you as a teacher and what you bring to those students in caring for them and letting them know that you want them to be successful in whatever course that they're in. So, you know, just keep that in your mind that your confidence is there. It's just how to express that to them and how to have them express their student concerns to you. So then it brings us to that question of how do you then show that faculty presence to the students and help them understand that you're there for them. So it's a really combination of instructional design and how you deliver instruction. It's going to communicate your personality, right? And then how you like to teach. And so really we're thinking about how do we help the students form an impression of you as a teacher and you as a presence in the course. How do we build connections? How do you guide and mentor them? And how do you keep your presence in the course throughout the delivery of the course and help it feel timely? And so the student presence is really in part what's going to help you assess their progress through your course. So you can monitor their participation, as we talked about, by looking at the logs of when they're in and when they're out, how long are they spending. But you can also use the discussion forums as a tool to see, are they there? Are they participating? Are they responding? Are they getting what I'm telling them? And then am I using messaging and the virtual office? Are they coming to the office? Are they asking questions? And so both the faculty presence and the student presence combine to build this, what they call the community of inquiry. So it's a feeling of we are in this course together as students and faculty, a community together moving through the term or the semester. And so part of that also is, and this is kind of what I think personally hurt my feelings the most when I started teaching online, is that, you know, not all the students really care about that. You know, they're going to be fine in the course just doing the stuff they need to do. They don't really need to come sit at my feet and hear, you know, listen to the pearls of wisdom dropping from my mouth. So, you know, they are not going to necessarily come to the virtual office hours. They're not necessarily going to be really present if I'm doing synchronous virtual classes. So some students are actually quite happy to just stand back and let things roll out and just monitor and watch. So you have to be prepared for that. And, you know, sometimes when I see that happening with a student, I'll reach out to them and say, you know, I'm just checking in. You know, do you have all the support you need to participate? Are you okay with things? Anything I can help you with? You know, and then they'll let me know, yep, I'm doing fine. Thanks for checking in. So they're actually just okay being what they're being. So you just have, you know, as a faculty member, I kind of had to get used to, like, they just don't always want to come and tell me how great I am. So for faculty presence, we have some tools. Video, of course, is what the preeminent people talk about. I found that video is, of course, very important and good. But if you're not that savvy with creating video, just doing audio is perfectly fine. It's a great way to, students can hear you. So put up like like we're doing now with this, just a headshot or just a shot of you, and have your video go along or your audio go along with that to help them feel and see you as a human being. So usually, you know, what's a good thing to do is, you know, students get loaded into the courses early on. After you get that list of students, send them an email with a welcome message to the course and a copy of the syllabus. And maybe some of the introductory material that they may have to read and deal with. And that helps them kind of on board a little more gently to the course. And then also tell them a little bit about yourself. I don't get too personal about that. I know some people, you know, some faculty introductions I've seen, it looks more like a dating website. But I do give them a little bit of, yeah, I live in Virginia and I teach online in this program. I have for so long. And then I say, you know, if you want to, you know, if you're concerned about how to address me, you can call me, you know, Dr. Beth or, you know, Professor Elias, whatever you're comfortable with is fine with me. And then I do introductory videos for each of the modules. Like, here's this module, here are our learning objectives, and here are the readings. This is what is important about this one reading. This is why I chose it and what I want you to get from it. And then sometimes with more difficult assignments, I'll do a separate video for those. And sometimes I'll give them a template too. Because online, you can't really introduce the assignment like you would in a face-to-face class. And I find that giving them things like a template or an example is really helpful for them when they're kind of dealing with things without actually having you in front of them. And then also the visual design of your course can help differentiate your course from others, but do it within reason. So if you're like, if CTLE has a template that they use for online courses, that can really help students reduce their cognitive burden of moving from one course to the other, because say the left-hand toolbar is the same, or the top toolbar is the same. They know where to click to get content. They know where to click to get drop boxes. So you can customize your course, but if they have a template, I would say use that and then do some customization within that so that they feel your presence in your course. So then with discussion forums, it's also a great way that I use to kind of keep track of students and how they're doing. So I usually read the discussion forum postings, new ones every day. And if I see students kind of getting off track, I'll make a post myself to kind of bring them back. But I don't hijack the discussion. I let them kind of go with their discussion. I may correct misinformation. Like, so a student may post something that's totally off the wall from a Wikipedia website or something that's like not really very solid. And but I won't, correct the student. I'll say, really a solid source of that, and this is a great source, but this is another source that you can look at for that. So you can kind of use that to kind of keep the herd moving in the same direction. And then I use announcements and the messaging like I would social media. So you'll see when we look at the example courses, I post timely news articles that relate to the content. And I sometimes will actually change the discussion questions going forward based on what's happening in the news, because health IT, as you know, right now is just totally on fire with the pandemic, to keep it timely so that they feel that timeliness in the course. It doesn't feel stale to them. So the announcement and messaging is a way that you can bring your faculty presence and also help the course feel more up to date and like current. So then I'll do a lot of one-to-one communication using the messaging within the student, within the system. And I'll tell you in a minute here, when we talk about students method, I always make sure that I make a list of the student's preferred name. How do they like to be addressed? And I always make sure I get back to them in a timely manner, so they're not sitting out there waiting for me to get back to them when they're stuck and trying to work on an assignment. So then also timely feedback on the assignments. And I use what one of my doctoral program faculty members use, which is a gems and opportunities method. And part of what this does is it helps us with students with their little successes early on so that they can develop some confidence in the online course. So here's some gems, the things that were really good in your assignment, and here's some opportunities you have to do even better. So I know it can seem a little bit, I don't want to say patronizing at first, but it helps them. They're new to this online stuff too, most of them. It helps them feel confident, like they're gaining some confidence with this way of talking about things. So then think about what activities you're doing and whether they have to be synchronous or whether they can move to an asynchronous activity. And so the link down at the bottom is a little bit of a helpful article about how you create a faculty presence in an online classroom, which I thought was really very to the point and helpful. So hopefully you'll look at that. So then how do we help students have a presence in the course? Because this is all new to them most of the time too. Although with undergraduate students, they're used to being, like it said, texting and FaceTiming already. So it's better for them to have a presence if you're clear about what your expectations are for their participation in the discussion forums and in-course communications. So when you email me a question about this course, please be sure to put the course title on the top subject line so I know the course that you're talking about without having to go look up the students in the course to know which course you're in. So give them some expectations about how they're going to communicate with you and how they're going to participate. And then I always do an introduce yourself discussion forum in the first week of the course. And I seed it with And tell me what you'd like to be, how do you like to be addressed? What do you like to be called? And it's okay if they do text, audio, or video, because the online learning system supports that. So they can use whichever format is comfortable for them, which really helps them feel like, okay, this is a place where I can be me, I can be comfortable. So then also it's important to be clear and reasonable about the course schedule. And that's probably changing with the pandemic and people being online and people learning from their homes. Where they may have children, they may have parents, they may have people working from home, they have limited space, they have interruptions all the time. So you may want to be a little more flexible with your course schedule, given that people are facing unprecedented challenges with meeting schedules these days. And so what I have found too with group assignments online, I have them do a team building exercise in the first week of being assigned to the group. And it's required, they have to complete it, but I seed it with, here's some initial rules for dealing with the group. Everyone has to participate. If somebody doesn't participate, team members can contact Dr. Elias and you know, basically turn them in. You have to show up for meetings. You have to do your work on time. So, and then I have them do things like, what do I want to get out of this assignment as a person? What do I bring to this group as a professional? How do I like to be addressed, and what are my preferred communication methods? So doing that little bit of team building basically at the beginning of group assignments when they move to online, I have to tell you, when I started doing that, it cut down on the team drama probably by 75%. It really helped a lot. Because I look at that afterwards and I give them feedback based on what I see about how they can be a better team. So then I also have them, I encourage student participation to guide how some of the course goes. So when I design the course, I usually leave like out 10% to develop as the course goes on based on student feedback and student preferences. So partway through the course, I'll solicit their feedback as you see. I may look at their good ideas, tips and tricks and things that they've shared, how to craft that last little part of the course. So they feel, and I let them know I'm doing that, so they feel like they are actually having some participation in guiding the course and moving it forward. So that's a good way to help them feel present in the course and feel like they've got some buy-in to what's going on. So then, as we talked about before, I always check their login and activities early and often. If somebody doesn't seem to be engaging in the first week, I send them an email. I'd like to talk to you. Can we have a moment? Give me a call, to see what the barriers may be to what's happening with them. So then if they don't seem to be present, I'll definitely take some action. Usually I'll get with Dr. Zalon as the program director and say, you know, this student does not seem to be engaging. I'm not sure what's going on with them. They're not really responding to me. I'm concerned about whether they're having some technology or some life event issues. And then she can take it from there to work with the student, contact the student and find out what might be going on. So I always assume that they're having some kind of life event or some kind of technology issue that is preventing them from engaging. So I find by taking that attitude, it's a little more helpful to help them on board if they've just been kind of like goofing off. If you say, I know you've been having some problems, let's get you back on board, then it's a lot better from there. So, and then I thought I would just share some tips and tricks for doing the video, because that is such a great way to bring your faculty presence forward. So you can see here, let me turn my video back on again, if I can get my toolbar, start the video, okay. Okay, so I usually when I'm talking to students, I have this tilted up a bit more so they can see my diplomas in the background. It's not just a blank white wall. It looks a little more professional. I'm really in an office. And I have privacy here. Nobody's going to be, I'm in a guest room that I turned into my office. Nobody's going to be walking behind me in slightly embarrassing ways, like with a towel on or anything like that. So think about how people could, make sure that you don't have that kind of visual interruption. And also, don't sit with your back to a bright light, because it's going to make your face look super dark. So I have, my overhead light is out now, but I have a desk lamp here, which highlights my face a bit so they can see my face. The only thing I can't figure out is how to correct the reflection off my glasses. So I'm still working on that. They're just readers, so they don't have the coating that you can get on regular glasses. And then also the thing is, make sure you're fully dressed. As we know with Zoom, people have been dressing from the waist up. But, you know, so many times when I'm talking to students, they'll ask me a question, you know, I have a journal that I just looked at today that let me get that off of my, oh, and then I have my cargo shorts on. So let me get that off my shelf and show you. So, you know, make sure that you're prepared for those unexpected times when you have to pop up out of your chair to talk to students. And so also, you know, you see my camera is up here on my monitor, Often when I'm doing presentations, I'm looking down here at the screen. So I'm looking down, or I'm at a laptop and I'm like, the laptop is like basically shooting up into my nose. They can count all my nose hairs. So, you know, look at the camera straight on if you can, and look at it as much as you can while the camera is on you. And so then think about ambient noise. I can't tell you how many times I've been in meetings and the lawn guys come to mow the lawn and it's like, the noise is incredible. So try to avoid ambient noise as much as you can. And then also, you know, I'm kind of a more enthusiastic person. So my tone changes. I move my hands because I do that. I tend to talk too fast, which is my problem. But you want to keep your tone engaging, like you would if you were face to face. And so then what I often do is I call it a video sandwich. So I do camera on me at the beginning. And then I do screencasting like we were doing for this presentation and we will do again. And then I do camera on me at the end. So it kind of helps them see you and feel you as a person in your setting. So they kind of feel like, okay, I know where she is. She's not in a black hole when they try to imagine you. Like when you're talking on the phone to somebody that you know that's moved recently and you don't know where they live and they're just in this black hole, it's very disconcerting. And also, you know, don't forget to be human. So things are going to happen. My cat likes to sleep on my desk when I'm working sometimes, and he'll get up and he'll walk across in front of the camera. So I just pick him up and I introduce him to the students. Here's Zippy, and I tell him a little bit about Zippy, and then he goes off and to be annoying in some other part of my life. So, you know, when things like that happen, just take advantage of it as a moment to, you know, break the ice and, you know, help your students see you as a human being. So, oh, sorry, let me get back over here. Oh, sorry. And so then to run a virtual class, I actually have a nice link down here from wiley.com about how to run a video classroom. So, you know, as we were talking about the video sandwich, have the camera on or a photo if you're not good with the camera at that point, video at that point, so they see you. So I always also record and archive the sessions for people that can't be there at the class at the moment, and there's always going to be people like that. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm still sharing the screen. Okay. So then also with Zoom, have one of the IT folks sit down with you and take you through Zoom. If you're not used to it, learn how to mute attendees when they come in, learn how to turn off the cameras when they first come in, learn how to enable the waiting room, because all those things will help protect you against what's called Zoom bombing now, where people are breaking into online courses and doing lots of inappropriate things. So there are ways that you can like set up your preferences for Zoom that will help protect you and your students from any of that behavior. So then also take students through, like I did with you, how to raise your hand, how to use the participant list to see who's raising their hand, who's muted and who's not. And then also like expected behavior. I expect you, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and I will call on you. And then mute yourself when you're not speaking, or I will mute you. And then let them know what they need to have on hand when they come to the virtual class. I want you to make sure you have this reading on hand because we're going to discuss it. Or I want you to have this survey done by the time you come to the virtual class if you're doing something like a flipped classroom. So then also, you know, I frequently will stop and ask students just to make sure they're not totally like glazed over and phased out. You know, just pick a student at random and say, hey, Michael, what did you think about that last comment I made about like helping student understand their expectation for behavior? And then you would like give them a chance. Oh, and you might want to unmute yourself. So go ahead and unmute yourself and respond to that if you wouldn't mind.
I loved it. I thought it was a lovely comment.
Great, thank you for that. And so did you understand what I meant by that about helping them understand how to better use the tool?
I think so.
You sound a little doubtful, Michael. Is there something I could clarify for you?
No, I don't know what I don't know, but I feel confident though.
Okay, good. And you know, the CTLE folks and the IT folks are always there. And you can also always email me. And if something is going on that you're not sure of, I'd be happy to, and I'm sure they would be happy to guide you through that moment of doubt if it comes to you when you're working through your course. How does that sound?
That's great. Thanks for the feedback.
Okay, you're welcome. And thank you for the feedback on how things were going with this so far. I appreciate it. So then I always do a wrap up and then a Q&A. So I'm going to do that right now with this PowerPoint presentation because let me share these resources with you first, and you'll get these slides. So we have some strategies for teaching online, which are basically what we discussed, which is establish a relationship with the students early on. You know, do the introduce yourself discussion forum, and I'm always the first person to post in that so that they see that there's something there. They're just not going into an empty room. I usually do a first week, come and meet your instructor if you want to, not required. Be accessible, reach out early and often through whatever avenue is better for the student type. You know, communication styles will change depending on whether it's an adult student or an undergraduate. You know, talk to them about what their communication style is and do the best you can to adapt to that. And then support these successes early and often with these gems and opportunity approach to grading and feedback. And think of grading as a teaching tool rather than as something, oh, you didn't do this right, which is how I approached it when I first started teaching, which was totally horrible. And then develop rubrics that they can see while they're working on an assignment so they know where to place the emphasis and where to spend their time. And then help them understand why this course is relevant to them. So for health IT, it's actually pretty easy right now with COVID. I don't have to really beat that too hard. Everybody knows right now that the data is everything to helping them understand how to protect themselves, their family, and their community. And then also, given the situation with the pandemic right now, try to be a little reasonable with your expectations and maybe a little more flexible with understanding people's situation, where they're learning and where they're trying to learn in their home with a somewhat chaotic environment for many people. For example, I met with a student yesterday to go over some feedback on an assignment, and he's working from home, and he asked at one point, he said, well, do you mind if I step away for a few minutes because I have to help my son log into his kindergarten virtual classroom? So I'm perfectly fine. I did some emails in the meantime, and then he came back. I'm like, okay, let's move on now. So, you know, things like that are going to happen right now. And so also, you know, let students feel like they have some say in how classes are going as much as you possibly can. Maybe ask them, like, you've been in the class for 4 or 5 weeks now. What would be an interesting discussion question based on what you've learned and what you might like to learn more about going forward? And then also to understand that the motivation for students to engage and participate depends a lot on collaboration and helps them develop competence. And then that's really kind of a feedback loop that goes back and forth. So the more that you can work with each of those components will help feed that sense of I'm confident and competent in dealing with this online course and the course material. So here are some helpful resources. I won't go through these now because you can look at them later, but they are links to Quality Matters, which is a program that was developed to help support excellence in online education when online education was new. A lot of great stuff out there, that a lot of tools and tricks that you can use to build in quality to your online course. There's the Online Learning Consortium, there's EDUCAUSE, distance education associations, and then also, you know, companies like Coursera, which are .coms that do online learning. You know, I actually just finished two Coursera courses in the basics in COVID-19 contact tracing because I wanted to try to incorporate some of that material into my courses for the tools that they use. But it's actually a good thing to learn. They have some free courses you can sign up for. You can actually look at those and say, okay, what do they do? How do they do things? It must work for them. They're making lots of money. So then there's also the CTLE on campus. A very helpful person, Brian Snapp, gave us some good resources, which are available in D2Learn right now that you can access how to do good Zoom videos, remote learning resources from the University of Scranton IT team, which they've done a great job with. And then also the CTLE main page. So they are there for you as a resource. And they're really just really great people, very helpful in learning how to do what we need to do. Okay, so I'm gonna stop screen sharing right now and ask if people have any particular questions after the PowerPoint that I can help you with.
So Beth,
Or are you just...
Patty Wisniewski had her hand up first.
Oh, okay, let me bring up that window, Dean, because I just stopped screen sharing, so it totally screwed up everything. So Patty, go ahead, what's your question?
No, right in the beginning when you were introducing you shared your screen, it appeared that you had a Mac computer and it had the whole bunch of little yellow tabs in the upper left-hand corner.
Yes.
They were extremely difficult to see, but I don't have a Mac and mine doesn't appear that way. So that was good for me to know because I wasn't aware that my students who use Macs, and many do, have a different view. So thank you for sharing that. And I just want to point that out in case others have Macs, that I have a different view using my PC.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Patty. So I'll talk about this later on, but be aware that when you're in D2Learn, your view as a faculty member is different from the student's view as a student. And I'll show you how to toggle that because oh yeah, I've got it all set up, and then the student will ask you, well, I'm seeing this on my screen, and you're like, I don't see it. Where's that, right? So different platforms like Mac versus Microsoft look different. The tools look different and work different. And then within the online learning system, your view as a faculty member is different from their view as a student. So it's always good to check that before you release that module. Thank you for that. So you're ahead of the game. So Michael, I see you're unmuted. Would you like to ask a question?
No, I was just unmuting in advance of.
I think I lost
sorry
you,
about
Michael. Let me unmic. Go ahead.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, no, I just had to unmute it in anticipation of a discussion. I didn't have anything in particular.
Okay. Okay. So Dean, I see that you're unmuted. Is there something I can help you with?
Well, no, I'm glad that you're going to share the slides. I didn't catch your first web address, and that I got part of it, but I didn't get all of it. So thank you for sharing your slides later. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I tried to build in some resources that people can use,
A
and
true
like I said,
academic, a true academic.
So Patricia, I see that you, so link in the chat. Sorry, the chat window disappeared on me, so I'm just looking at the chat now, and I apologize for that. Normally I'm all about the chat.
No, that's
okay,
all right.
So go ahead, Dean.
No, that was fine. I just was keeping up with the chat, trying to help you out there. So you really didn't miss anything. I got to tell you. So
I appreciate that, because normally I have the chat window, but with my Mac, when I do the share screen, it minimizes all of those, and I have to remember to go back and open them up. So as a faculty member, if you're doing this kind of thing, you may want to remember, as I did not, to go back and open up the chat window for students that prefer to type in. And I've had students, they are in a setting where they can't really have their mic on. They're at work, or they're in a noisy environment at home. So there are always going to be people that want to type into the chat window rather than take the mic. So be prepared for that. So I'm a good example of what not to do.
Is there a way that you can shut off the chat so that you don't so for example, Hope will know this. So I have this 265 freshmen, and I do these town hall meetings, and they're driving me nuts the last time with the chats. So how can I shut that off?
So what I would suggest, Dean, is rather than shutting it off, I would suggest having an assistant there with you to manage the chat.
That's what I'm doing next time. Okay, got it.
Right. So you have an assistant there with you to manage the chat, and the assistant only interrupts you with the chat when it's something that really matters.
Okay.
For you to address particularly. So the assistant can manage the chat and then only interrupts you when it's something that they need to know specifically from you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
I know that I know
I'm
that
sorry,
at
go
some
ahead.
At some meetings where they don't want a lot of sidebar conversations, you can direct the chat to only go to you and not
Yes.
between them, depending on, like with 265 people, I don't think
Yeah.
you want chat between them.
Yeah.
But that's
Right.
a setting, I think, when you set up the meeting. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
can
think
actually
you're
do
right.
it in the meeting. Like right now, I can shut off the chat so that no one can chat. When you have it, it's in the participants pane. And
So
there's
Aaron, we're all hail Aaron for being the Zoom expert. So I think Aaron is your new best friend, Dean.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was just saying that
Oh.
Aaron is the dean's best friend.
Yeah, definitely.
Deb, I was gonna say, when you have the town hall with all the kids,
Uh-huh.
that's what, you can have Amy do that. So you could say at the beginning, if you have a chat question, you're gonna be able to chat with Amy. And then like Aaron said,
Yeah.
you can disable it for everybody else, and then they can't be doing what they did.
Thank you. See, I'm getting better every time. So Beth, I'm showing you that I'm human. I never thought I'd have 265 students at one time.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think that helping our students in the class see that we're human, because we're learning to use the tool at the same time they're learning, and it helps break that ice. It helps, kind of break that barrier that's between faculty and students, and it's such a barrier to building a relationship. So,
Yeah.
So, does anybody else have anything else that they'd like to add, contribute, feedback, helpful tips and tricks?
I'm going to say one thing because I found it never occurred to me. Last fall, somebody in another health informatics class had a problem with the student. And so the faculty sent me all of his feedback that he gave to this particular student on the homeworks. And it never, and we're having our accreditors come and visit. He does it via email. And so it finally dawned on me, it's not going to be in the learning management system.
Right.
And so I think there's very good merit that when you, as Beth said earlier, that you communicate anything that is course related within
Right.
the learning management system, because then it's not in your email elsewhere, but then you have a nice record of it. So you had a wonderful record, but we hopefully have gotten him to change his ways for the future,
Right.
because he had it all, when we needed it. But just for that kind of thing. And then I think just for personally tracking it and ensuring that it's there instead of your emails,
Right.
which I think are harder to find anyway.
Yeah, so I have to, full confession here, Margaret. That tip came to me from when I redesigned 520 with Wiley's instructional designer, and I'm forgetting the fellow's name now, and he was just a lovely person. A
Bill,
really
yeah.
great instructional designer. Bill. So I usually would do email with students outside of the course, right? And he's like, well, if you do it within the course, then you have that whole record within the course, and it's all there in one place. So I took that on board. So, that idea did not come from me. It was from Bill. So.
Okay, yeah.
Margaret, do you do that by when you're in D2L and you're in your course? Do you email the student from the course versus just
Yes.
using your email?
Yeah.
Well, just using your
Yes.
email, but actually I didn't clarify one thing. If you do, the email within the course will be private. Our accreditors visit us and get into the course. They will not see the email to the student. What I meant to say is to comment on the assignment within the assignment Dropbox.
Oh,
Then
okay.
it's preserved
Okay.
for an external visitor.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and actually I didn't mean that you can correspond back and forth within the course, but I think if you're
Yes.
giving feedback on the assignment, do it in the assignment Dropbox, because then that documents the feedback that you gave to that person, and it's all there.
Yeah. I would just also encourage you, Hope, to do the email messaging within the learning management system, because that was Bill's point, was then you don't have to go out trolling through your university email and what you may have missed, it's all there. So in our case, the accreditors won't be able to see that unless we show it to them, but it's all there. We can show it to them within the course and it's all there. So I think about it from that perspective now, since Bill brought that point up about university email, I delete things go in the trash, the student may delete things. If it's all there within the LMS, it's all there. So, you know, that may be useful to think about. So, okay, so I think, is everybody ready to move to phase 2, which is going to be actually looking at a course that's in the process of being redesigned for online versus face-to-face? Oh, so go ahead, and I showed you how to raise your hands. If you're ready, you can do a thumbs up if you prefer, or you can just take the audio and tell me that you're ready.
You know what? I have a question.
Sure.
Which may be better for later. I don't know, and you could just tell me.
Right.
But I am teaching, this is the first year I'm teaching first year students. So I'm trying to establish a sense of community. So I did ask them for feedback because it's midterm. And they had said things that they had liked that worked for them is me giving them like weekly updates of, hey, this is what's coming up this week, just so they don't miss things. I did ask them, would they prefer me to communicate via text or a different alternative than the LMS email? And they said, no, the email is fine. So that works out well for me. But they absolutely love the breakout rooms.
Yes.
And I do a type of more of a flipped classroom rather than me just lecturing. So it works well with me, but I feel like I want to give them more variety, but they're liking that. So are there different ideas that kind of have that same concept, but can be done differently?
Is this for the discussion forums?
No, it's actually, I do Zoom. I teach remotely.
Okay.
But they're face-to-face one day, and then the other day we're all on Zoom together. But I'm Zoom and they may be face-to-face, but when we're in Zoom together, just to try and get that, you know, to develop some, you know, bonds with their cohort.
Okay.
So, and they absolutely love the teams.
Right. So one of my colleagues used to do this format called a debate format. So since you're already doing flipped classroom, this will be very familiar to you. So she assigned students in groups, either 2, depending on how many students you have, 2 or 3, or 2 or 3 or 4. And they were given a topic, and they were supposed to take 2 sides of the topic and debate.
Right.
So they had to develop the debate ahead of coming to the classroom, virtual classroom. And then they had so many minutes for side 1, 2 minutes for side 2. And then they had to have, another team would present their discussion, their debate, another team, their debate. And then you started over again. At the beginning, you had 30 seconds to rebut the other side's debate. And so then if you do a peer evaluation at the end, so each debate team had to peer evaluate another team, that helps promote them listening to what other people are talking about. But they have to come with their debate prepared ahead of time, the 2 members of the team, and then they develop their rebuttal during that time while they're listening to other students doing their debate. So that actually was quite successful because it brought a little bit of an aspect of competition to it, which people tend to like. And then also, we've had our debate. Now I've got some time the 2 students can go into a breakout room and do their rebuttal to their other teammates' debate points. So I've seen her use that really successfully, and it's really kind of engaging. The students really seem to like that kind of feature. So, and then there was also doing a peer evaluation, having students do a little presentation, even if it's not a debate, and then having a peer evaluation at the end. Right, I've done that.
They have many presentations because this is one of the Eloquentia Perfecto courses where the presentations. So.
I've not had a lot of luck with that as far as peer evaluations go. So a lot of the responses were formulaic. So I have them actually do, or you have to be prepared to talk for 2 minutes on a particular topic and then respond to one of your classmates' presentations at the end. So I've done the debate thing. I've done you have to present a little bit on this topic, and then you have to give an evaluation. Oh, sorry, Mike, he's having to leave to put the kids to bed. So I think either one of those might be helpful. And, you know, I can, if you want, I can look for some more information about that and then get back to you.
No, I recall those techniques. I just didn't remember them. So good reminders. So, and I have some other activities built in later in the semester that kind of mimic where they have to respond.
Yeah. Or you can have them do a treasure hunt. I've used that pretty successfully in the past. So at the beginning of your online session, okay, here's our topic for the day. And at different points, I'm going to give you a treasure hunt assignment, and you're going to have to go out to the web and find something about that and bring it back to the class and what you've learned about it. And then just do a little bit of a sharing about that.
Perfect.
So, and that's a good phased thing to do. So, you know, the first, you can say, okay, here's group one. These are students in group one. You're going to be, while I'm talking about this topic, I want you to make some notes, and then I want you to do a treasure hunt and answer this question about this topic. And then you move on to talk about the second segment. And then group two gets something that they have to go out and find about that and bring back. And then at the end of the session, everybody, you touch on group 1, 2, 3 to talk about what they found.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
They seem to like that. Okay. Do you guys want to move to looking at some examples of the online course? I don't know. How many people are used to teaching online? I didn't even think to ask that. So yeah, you are.
Obviously.
Yep, Dean Pellegrino for sure. Yeah, Margaret for sure.
Okay, so Tracy, yeah, anesthesia's a tough one, I think.
Yeah.
Tracy and Ann.
Oh, so yeah, so Tracy, I taught a number of students in a DNP program who were CRNAs, and they were some of the most intense people I have ever met in my life. So I think anesthesiologists are, I don't know if your students are like that, but they were just like type quadruple A times 4 for me. They really kept me on my toes. So we're kind of rounding up on the hour, and I just want to.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Tracy. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say it was quite the transition going from face to face and having that contact and hands-on to
Right.
the virtual world that we're in now. So it's been a learning curve.
Yeah. And
Well,
Ann is our other,
especially.
Ann is our other
Go ahead.
CRNA here tonight.
Okay, so yeah, they were just intense people. I mean, challenged me in the best way possible every step of the way. So let me bring up, I'm going to share screen again and just show you one of Margaret's courses that we are in the process of helping to transition to online. And this is Indeed to Learn. And so this is how I suggested Margaret work with the course. So when students first get into the course, they see initially they see the welcome message from me. I just have my photo there. You could do a video or a photo with an audio if you're not comfortable working with video yet. And then I just do a very simple introductory message, you know, very encouraging. And then I have the students take a survey so that they can choose what time we're going to have virtual office hours, depending on what's best for them. And then tell them, go ahead and introduce yourself in the discussion forum and let us know a little bit about your work and why you're taking this course. And then here's my contact info. And, you know, just some things like online students can be hesitant to talk to you and call you. So I just try to break that ice a little bit. Like, I actually enjoy talking to students. You know, give me a call. You leave me a message if I don't pick up, and I'll call you right back. Here's some information about how to access the library resources that you're going to need to have. So after the first week or so of the course, this message rolls off, and I use the news to post like, oh, here's something that's currently happening in the news around health IT, to kind of keep that feeling that the course is like current right now. So then we can go to some of the content, which is where they'll see everything that they need to have. So they have the course overview. And I always like to post a fun picture. There's a black bear destroying my really expensive squirrel-proof bird feeder, and Pole enjoying his dinner in our backyard. So then it's just a brief note about, you know, this is basically what the course is, kind of like the course introduction. And then just, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, you know, and here's how you can get to the portal, how to get to D2Learn. The course schedule, I use that pretty heavily because it really helps students understand, like, what have I got on for this week? So you'll see that when you develop an assignment, you put a due date on, and that will show up in the schedule. I can also put on some things like some other information about assignments. Here's when my office hour is this week, and here's the link to it, and how to dial in if you don't have the phone. So that's the course schedule for this week, but then they can also view the full schedule. So it's worth taking some time to flesh that out initially, because they will come to rely on that pretty heavily. So then you'll see there's a table of contents which takes them to everything that's in the course, which is kind of like the fire hose. But then I always like to have a getting started module where they can see the course syllabus. The introduce yourself forum is there. And then here's a discussion about let's get started with the course. And I always put a video in here of me saying, hey, let's get started with the course. Here's some things I want you to make sure you do. I want you to review the syllabus. I want you to introduce yourself. I want you to, like, let me know, send me an email if you have any special needs, or if you need any special accommodations that I haven't heard from the online group, the university group about. Let me know anything in particular that I can know about you to help you with this course. And then I always have the schedule here. So here's module 1. They click on that, they see everything they need to do for their first module. So I have different modules here for every section of the course. And then often with things like, here's all the lectures in case you can't remember what module it was in. And then here's some helpful resources, links to professional websites, links to how to do a good presentation, things like that. And then here's our Zoom resources, which are my virtual office hours and anything else that they need to learn, some tips and tricks on how to use Zoom. And then often what I'll do with the course is I'll develop a module template so that I basically will just duplicate that anytime I need to create a new module so that the font is consistent, the placement is consistent, students aren't using their CPU cycles to figure out where is this, what is this. So all the modules will be structured in the same way. There's always an introductory video that I want them to view, right? Talking about the readings. I go through, like, here's the readings, this is what this reading is about. Just what I would say is if I was in front of them in the class. Then there usually will be some kind of PowerPoint presentation that's narrated, a video that they view. Another one here, because this is Margaret's course and she's really into hypothesis testing. So we're having that there. And then I always put the general course discussion forum in there in case during their work in this module, they have a question about it that they want to submit right then and there without going back out to find where that discussion forum is. And then there will be their assignment, you know, with the guidelines in it. And you can either have the guidelines as a document that they download, which is kind of the quick and dirty way to do it if you're moving to online from face-to-face and you're like totally flat out. But then with more time, you can actually put the guidelines in. So then they would click on that and the Dropbox would be there for them to submit their assignment. And when you would set up the assignment, you would actually have the date, and I'll show you this. I don't know if I can get there from here. Don't think I can. Okay, so when you're editing the assignment, so here's where you can actually add your text there. And let me just say this for developing this content online, is that for people that use screen readers that may be visually impaired, if you structure this when you're putting it together so that you're using things like, you can see this topic heading is big. It's actually an H1 heading. And then this part, which is basically text, is a paragraph. So people that are using screen readers, the screen readers will link onto these H1 and H2 headings for them to help them navigate this content more successfully for accessibility. So when you're thinking about doing this online, you know, just think about heading 1 is the basic topic, and then I have
Oh, you just froze.
Sorry about that. My internet connection went unstable on me. So be prepared for that. So just know that within the system, there are things that you can do that will help accessibility for students that may have some difficulties with reading and visual acuity. So I won't beat that up too much. Let's go back to the content area.
So we had a question, Beth.
So, you know, if you'd like some help with organizing this in a way that makes it look clean and navigable for students and for you, let me know. I'd be happy to meet with you to do that. See.
Yeah.
Oh. Let me get that. So, okay, go ahead. So for some reason, my internet is getting a little bit iffy. So go ahead. Who has the question? And go ahead with that.
Go ahead, Patty.
I did. I wanted to know, Beth,
what the chat window here.
What video platform do you use? Because I've used Screencast-O-Matic before, and I've encountered problems where they told me it was too large of a file to include. And it was like, oh, after all that work.
You mean to record your videos?
I noticed, like, in your introduction. Now, if they're short videos, they work fine.
So, right. So I use a tool, and let me stop share. I'll show you the tool I use here. I'm going to share my whole screen because it's more instructional this way. So I use a tool called Camtasia.
Okay. And is that a free
very
software?
Straightforward and pretty basic video editing tool. So let me open up a project that I just, it's a 30-day free trial, but then you have to pay for it. So let me bring this up, which is, so here's my video that I put together for the first week of the introductory class. So it gives you the ability to record video or screencast. And so it gives you a timeline down at the bottom. Like, say, for example, I started babbling on and I stumbled and I want to cut that part out. So that's like here at my timeline. So I want to cut out that first part because I just totally screwed that up. I can cut out that piece and get rid of it and put in a new piece. So the advantage to this is that if you're making changes in a class, you don't have to redo the whole introduction. You can just change the part that matters. Like, say this part, I'm talking about a particular reading, but I'm changing the reading. So, or the quiz is changing. So I need to change what I'm saying about the quiz. So it's a little bit of more of a learning curve, but it's worth taking the time because it saves you time later on. And I think it's under $100 to buy this. So here's the recorder. So you can either record full screen or part of the screen at different resolutions. You can see now it's like, oh, here's the part I want to record. And then you can either have the camera on you or not. You can have the audio on you or not. So it gives you some flexibility. Like, say I just want to do screencasting. So the camera is going to be off and I'm just going to record from a portion of the screen. So that's the tool I use. In the past, I've used iMovie because it was quick and easy. It was on my Mac. So let me actually stop sharing and go back to sharing. So I think Screen-O-Matic is, I mean, it's a good quick and dirty tool, but it, you know, like a lot of things that are quick and dirty, it suffers from that in that it's got a lot of quick things that you can learn how to use, but it's not that fully featured.
And it doesn't look that professional sometimes.
Does that? Yeah, that's right. So the nice thing about Camtasia is you get transitions. You can either do a fade transition, you know, fade to black when you're done. You can fade your audio. And, you know, it takes a little bit of practice, and I'd be happy to walk you through that. But it ends up saving me a lot of time because when I need to change just a portion of a video introduction, I can just do that portion without having to redo the whole thing. So it saves me time because of that.
Thank you.
So Yeah, you're welcome. Let me get up that. So now, see, now I went back. Every time I change the screen sharing, it gets rid of that chat window in the participant window. So I have to remember to open that up again. Okay, so with this, you'll see that we have the introductory video right there at the top. And often I didn't do it here because I was rushed, but here it tells you, it gives the student an idea of how long it is. So they know, okay, I shouldn't watch this if I just have 5 minutes. I need to make sure I have 11 minutes to sit down and watch this. So then, of course, here are all the readings. And often I'll have these be links. If it's an open source thing, it'll just be a link that they can click on. And then, like I said, the rest of it is just the things that they have to do for that module. So everything is kind of self-contained there. And they know once I'm done with all this stuff, I'm done with that module. And then, you know, the next time they can go to module 2 for what they need to do there. So this one is not quite, so I don't have a video there yet. So often when I'm developing them, I'll just put a placeholder in like, okay, this is where I need to put my video. And then I need to do these other things. But by building a template module at first, you can then duplicate that so that all the font headings are the same and things are consistent as far as what's where. So that's usually a very helpful way to set that up. So does anybody have any questions that I'd like to ask about how this course is being developed? I don't see.
Could you show us the template
so if
model?
we're okay, oh, I'm sorry. I don't have anything in there. Well, actually, I think I did do that. I think I did do that. So here's my template module. It's pretty basic. So here's my font for the introduction. Be sure to view this. Then I put my video here. Then my topics and readings go here. And then the assignments and things come after that.
And then Beth, you could copy that?
So it's not fully fleshed out yet because we're still, yes, you can copy that. So yes, you can. So you can, with D2Learn, I'd have to relearn how to copy that, but usually you can copy that and then rename it so that you have a consistent module format.
I'll call Brian and find out.
It saves time.
Yeah, I think
Brian,
there's
I'm
a
free
little
dial.
arrow next to the template module up there. There might be a drop down next to where it says temp up in the big part of the screen.
In the middle,
In the
center.
middle.
Oh,
Go further up. No, to the right, Beth, and then go up.
Here.
No, not there. Where you've actually opened template module. And you see that little arrow next to template?
oh, I see. Oh, I see. There, here.
Yeah, that probably is.
Yeah. No, not there.
Up, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I didn't see
Nope.
one where you can copy. That's why I was like,
So
because I would love to copy some things.
I'm sure there's a way. So at the very least, Margaret, what you can do is you can go into this, let it open up, and then cut and paste into your new module, right? So I'm sure there's a way to duplicate that. There is for most of the LMSs, but then here I can just basically cut and then, you know, copy and then paste it into my new module. So at least I've got my H1 set up and my H2 set up for screen readers for people that need that support. So
Beth, we had our disabilities conference yesterday, and right now it's we'll be able to download everything, but we had registrants where we had to have the screen readers and closed captions. So that's very important because it's really important that we are 508 compliant. The other one is, you know, CTLE, that web page, they have the online mechanics. But you know what I find out I do is I just Google it. So I'll say, like, if I forget how to do a discussion board or something, I just Google it in the internet, and then it comes up and it helps me that way. Like, you know.
Yeah, and for photos too, you know, like if we look at the content that I have, let's look at that photo real quick, because there's a alt text for photos that's meant to help people be compliant. Sorry, let me get to, I need to go content to overview. I'm sorry, I'm getting lost here. I haven't worked with D2Learn in a few years, so I had to do a crash course to teach myself. So why am I not getting the overview coming up here? Content, let me go to course home. So it's just slow. I think my internet connection is not too great right now, so.
Yeah, it said video loading stopped.
So for photos, there's, yeah, right. So course home, but I'm trying to get back to the course home, which is not letting me get to. So there's a way when you put up a photo that you can do an alt text explaining it if it's pertinent to the content, or you can mark it as just decorative. So like Dean was saying, there are different ways in the course. So often when I have a video, I will also just have the text of the video. So here's, so if I had video here, I would basically just read this. And I would tell students, I'm basically going to be reading the text so that this content is more accessible to students. So it's okay to, in this case, we always say don't read the text. In this case, it's perfectly acceptable to read the text, and then that serves as a transcript for people that may have difficulties with hearing. So when I do videos, I will often have the text underneath the video that I spoke so that students that have hearing challenges can read it as opposed to listening to that. So yeah, there's lots of great things you can do to build accessibility. And it's not just people with hearing and visual challenges that enjoy that. It's basically everyone that makes it, anything that makes it easier for them to understand what's going on is good. So yeah, CTLE is fabulous for that. So I'm going to show you my course in Engage, which is the platform we use for the health informatics program, which, I probably timed out. So let's see if I can get back there. Oh, yeah, here we are. So here's as a faculty member, here's my list of courses on the side. And so if I wanted to, this is their announcements. So you can see here in the announcements, every week I'm putting up like, here's something in the news right now about health IT. Also, if you want to talk to me, I always put up my contact information every couple of weeks. Here's my phone number, give me a call. Here's the VOH times, come on by. So I use these announcements, as kind of like my social media. And then there's, here's my getting started module in this course. So I have a link to the announcements in there. We have a start here, which kind of is like, here's where you want to go initially when you're first in the course. Here's a welcome, and you can either do video, audio, or a combination of both, or just text. Here's the schedule for the course, how things are going to roll out over the term. Here's a little bit of my professional bio. Here's the syllabus. Here's the student lounge. Here's general questions. Ask me a question if you want. And this is something specific to this course since we're using a simulated EHR. And here's how to get started with Zoom. And here's my virtual office. So I have all that there. And then here's our first module. And this is the way Engage has things set up. So I do a little overview there. Here's my learning objectives. Here's some required viewing that you'll see in the readings. So then here's my readings and resources that they can click on. Here's our discussion forum. Here's your assignment. Here's your quiz. And here's some information about your electronic portfolio. So in the readings and resources is where I have my video. Here's my introductory video where I take them through everything. And like I said, I always give them how long it's going to take approximately so that they're prepared for that. And then here's their readings, and I take them through, here's your readings, here's the point of this reading, here's what you're gonna read from chapter 1 and why I feel it's important for you to read that. Here's a really boots on the ground publication about this topic, like as it exists in healthcare organizations today. So I always try to give them that introduction to things and how things are going to work for the rollout of this particular module. So any particular questions about how things work in this learning management system? But you can see that they all do the same things regardless of the system.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're over time here. I'm sorry, I'm taking way too long like I always do.
No, we're very
So I'm gonna stop sharing and just turn it over to, I know we've been doing really, So any brainstorming that people would like to share about how they've been doing in moving their courses online, or any questions that I can be particularly helpful with? I'd be happy to answer them now, or if you want to email me, my email is just beth.elias@scranton.edu. I'd be happy to respond to any questions, particularly for people that are listening to this as an archive. I'm more than happy to answer any questions I can, asynchronously for people that are listening to it later. So anything I can help anybody with at the moment? Or are you just like totally glazed over right now with me just like waving my hands way too much?
I just have a comment, actually.
Oh, thank you, Hope. Go ahead.
So I was listening to another conference last week on people with disabilities and online teaching. And that instructor made a comment that the Rehab Act and the American Disabilities Act right now have been brought forward for amendments to be made to both of those because of all the online learning. So the laws, potentially, they're not approved at this point, but the laws that are being put forth, or the amendments to the laws that are being put forth, are being much more specific about students with disabilities in the online learning format. So a lot of the stuff that you referred to with people with vision difficulties and hearing, using captions, the captions have to be, well, the captions is word for word what the professor is saying. So one of the issues, not really an issue, but one of the points that the presenter made that I thought was really interesting was a professor is, under the new law, if it gets passed, you're not really allowed to talk freely unless you have captioning on your slides, because if you have someone who's hearing impaired, they have to be given the same opportunity. So she was saying how it's very expensive for institutions, but probably our systems are going to have that capability coming down the pike. So I think it's really interesting that you brought it up also. So something for all of us to be aware of.
Yeah,
and we really.
So I think that was part of the reason I brought that up. Yep, all going to do it. So yes, so I taught a couple of courses at OSU, Ohio State University, and they participate in Quality Matters. And accessibility was a huge part of the Quality Matters review of your class as you were developing it. So I give them credit for teaching me that. And also, you know, I've had enough students come through my classes now who had needed accommodation for multiple reasons. And I was always guided, you know, usually they would register with the university service that worked with students that needed accommodation. And I would either hear from that service about what I needed to do, or, you know, often some, you know, students would email me saying, I'm registered with the office, blah, 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 and they're going to be reaching out to you. And I'm like, well, you know, that's fine, but I'm not going to wait for them to reach out to me. Why don't you tell me what I can do to help you with the course? And so that kind of started cueing me in early on, like 2010, 2011, about like, okay, there are things I can do within this program, this software, to, you know, make some of this a non-issue, and using things like the headings within developing the content within, you know, so screen readers can get with it. And then also having the transcript there, pretty much word for word. You know, I know sometimes people can feel that like that stifles the creative moment, but you know, if you record yourself, you can always put the transcript up there the next day if you had a little spontaneous thought. So, you know, I think there's a lot we can do to help people be present in the course as students and enjoy the content. And also, you know, I had a number of students email me. Sometimes I would put up both files, like the video file and also just the audio file. And I had students, they would download the audio files and listen to them while they were driving to work. So, you know, I think there's, you know, even for students that may be visually and hearing normal, or average, I should say, then there are things we can do to support them with these kind of accessibility issues. So, you know, just think about it from an idea of like busy people, they can listen to audio, maybe they can do without the video.
I think that's really interesting. About a year ago. So I am
going to finish here.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Margaret, sorry.
Yeah, about a year ago, the online programs director had a meeting directors had a meeting with CTLE to talk about issues related to accommodations in general. And now we've had a little transition, so I'm not sure, as we get our new dean in place,
Right.
it seems like, and now we're in a different world, we need to be thinking more about these things. But just some of the things that I heard you talk about, because typically, while we've had some students with disabilities in nursing, I think it's not as common, but not out of the realm. I've had students who had serious hearing problems many years ago, and we did, she did have special stethoscope and so forth and so on. But there are we've had other issues along the way, and we need to be, we need to do what's right.
Yep. We really,
Right.
we do. So for the sake of time, because I know we're all getting ready, we have to get ready for the debate to watch this debate tonight.
So for me, yeah.
I lost her here.
Okay. So I'll just share this as a parting thought that along the lines of online learning and accommodations, that for me, when you apply for a faculty position, they'll often ask you, what's your philosophy of teaching? And I can sum it up in one sentence for me, and that is that the point is that the students get the materials. And whatever I need to do as a faculty member, whether it's an accommodation or an online learning design or my faculty presence or student presence, whatever I need to do to help ensure that students have every opportunity to get the material, that's what I'm going to do. So, it's whatever it takes. I'm on the hook for that. So, Dean, thank you so much for this opportunity to do this presentation and share this time with the other faculty members. I really appreciate it. It's been a very gratifying and heartening for me.
Oh, well,
Thank you.
We really enjoyed it. We want to thank you. I mean, to be honest, we're all lifelong learners, and just this conversation was excellent. I can't wait to share it with everyone. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I really mean that. We know Margaret's blessed to have you, but we're blessed as a college to have you too. So thank you.
Yes, we are.
I mean,
you, Beth.
you are PCPS. You
Well,
might
thank
be
you.
kind
And
of
you're all
Virginia,
very welcome. Like I said,
but you are PCPS. So thank you so much. And I know Patty, she's in her doctoral program, and I know she's
Well,
really
thank you.
appreciating this too.
Thank you. I truly feel that right now.
For information technology, Beth.
Very good. That's
So
excellent.
I'm learning, so
Oh,
I know about
so
universal
Pat-
design for learning, and so,
Yeah, so
Oh, do
so I
we-
may be reaching out to you
Yep.
since you offered.
yeah, so just reach out, Pat, if you want to share the suffering. Yep, definitely do that. All right, so I guess I'm going to exit the meeting right now, and I hope you all have a great rest of the evening. And as I
Thank
said,
you, you
reach
as
out
well.
if there's anything about
Thank
any of this that I can help you with. And I'll share the slides
Bye-bye.
with Margaret tomorrow, and she can pass them on.
Okay,
So,
and Margaret, thank you
Bye-bye
for
for now.
sharing Beth with us. We really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank you.
Aaron, too, for staying with us. I know you're still here, Aaron, so thank you.
Yeah, okay.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.